Hi everyone, welcome to the second episode of Mapping Inspirational Women. Today we are here with Wei Li, another geographer, and I'm so curious to know more about Wei Li and also know about the beautiful image behind Wei.
Hi, thank you for having me to your series. I'm very grateful for you to do this project. The image behind me was where I visited this summer, last month in Central Asia. Specifically, it's in Tajikistan, called Seven Lakes. As a geographer, I do like to visit different part of the world.
That's cool. And can I ask, like a geographer as a profession, which part do you focus on? Do you focus on migration, certain topics? What is the inside geography? What is the kind of like the subdiscipline that you're most fascinated by?
Sure. I was trained at college. I was actually in geography department and in what is now Shoudu or Capital Normal University. It used to be called Beijing Normal University, training high school teachers. So like you, I actually share the same background as you, trained as a high school geography teacher. My bachelor thesis was actually about the Green Revolution in India. That was my first focus. Then I changed to human geography in a broader science, but also population ethnic geography in particular. So I ended up specializing in global migration. That's pretty much my primary focus.
Yeah. So in this kind of like journey that you have gone through with geography from Green Revolution to global migration. So can I know about the kind of like things our topic is about inspirational women? Can I know about the inspirational women geographer you met in this journey? Like who first come to your mind?
Inspirational women geographers inspired my career trajectory. The first one was when I was a master's student back in Peking University Geography Department. My associate advisor, Professor Wang Yixian, who is one of the few renowned female geographer at the time in my department. And she was very inspirational because she got her master's degree at University of Maryland, which actually eventually I went to University of Maryland for a few years in part of that. And my advisor, Professor Zhang Jingzhe, both of them got their degree from University of Maryland. She was very helpful in my master's thesis writing and doing research. More so, she played an important role. When I left China, there was a policy that someone need to guarantee I would go back. So someone need to sign a paperwork, go to the government, this district government, sign a paper saying if I don't go back, this person will be responsible. She was willing to do that. So I was really appreciate for her being able to do that. And the rest is a different story, but I just want to point it out. Her commitment for me to be a professional geographer. Other inspirational geographer, female geographers are all in the U.S. I just listened your interview with Sarah, so I also want to emphasize the important role the late Susan Hardwick to my career. I'll try not to repeat what she already said. I'm not sure.
You have different stories.
You can see this.
Yeah, I can see this.
Yeah, this was the last photo I have with her in Chicago AAG in 2015. And this was when she received the mentoring award from AAG. As Sarah mentioned, she actually passed away. That's the same year, November. So afterwards, AAG changed the name of just the mentor award, changed to Susan Hardwick Award. was never her student. And I never took a course from her. She and I first met each other at AAG meeting, the American Association of Geographer meeting. And she has the ability to make everyone in ease. So one of the meetings she said was a group of us, including me and other immigrant geographers, I guess in order to ease our nerve, because she was such a big name geographer in US, she told us a story of her aspirational immigration story. So we all laughed. None of us knew that. And afterwards, we all really relaxed and we talked to her just to show how much devotion she has to junior geographers, female in particular. She has the passion and ability. When she talked to you, you felt you were the most important person in the world, as Sarah also mentioned. I think she knew my work sometimes better than I did. And I can't count how many recommendation letters she wrote for me for jobs or for fellowship and for grant. So I was really truly grateful to her because she, and the other thing I want to share a fact about her is that she's such a humble human being, because I always look up the big name geographer, right? So I saw that she has such self-confidence. She's respected by so many people. And she once shared with me saying she too had insecurity deep in her mind. So I just felt the trust we had towards each other. She was so willing to open up about her own inner world. So I really miss her. And I, like Sarah said, so many of us were inspired by her, mentored by her, and befriended with her. The second geographer is actually not, I need to correct myself. It's not a U.S. geographer. It's a Canadian geographer, Professor Audrey Kobayashi. She's at Queen's University, and she is at the forefront of anti-racism scholarship in North America. She was AAG president as well about a decade ago, and she actually when I was a Fulbright in Canada, was actually not in her department, but in the same university. So ever since then, I know her much more as a prominent scholar as well as a friend. Because I visited her house, she invited me and all that. I think the very important work she has done to geography and to scholarship is her inspirational, as well as at the forefront of the scholarship, emphasizing anti-racism. Because as an immigrant student and then professional, a lot of times I try to be not conservative, but very conscientious about what the academic and the real world I'm facing, right? So sometimes I become more observant, not speak up openly. At least earlier in my career before I got tenure. But Audrey told me we need to speak up. We need to speak up for marginalized people and for people who have less voice than us, because as academics, we are more privileged people. And I also admire her because she's actually not just doing academic work, not just in the Ivy Tower. She was deeply engaged in communities. So she's done a lot of work for community, based on community, involved and partner with community. I believe she's one of the key scholars eventually prompt Canadian government to apologize to Japanese Canadians for World War II intimate experience as well as the repatriation for these people. So I think she's very inspirational and as well as a true role model for me. The third geographer who is a American or US, actually she's an Australian geographer in US. So you can say Australian American geographer. Her name's Janice Monk. She retired from University of Arizona. She is one of the first women geographer in the U.S. Promoting and doing actual research about women geographer in the world as well as in the U.S. She too was elected as AAG president. So her work has been pioneering along with Susan Hansen. Sarah also talked about. So they were among the first group or first cohort of geographer making women's issue, making gender, making feminist geographer to the forefront. Because before, you might not know. I actually didn't know before I joined the project. Interview all the 17 surviving AAG women president that I learned back in the 50s. AAG in the annual meeting. Now we kind of have an idea about what annual meeting looks like, right? Back then they have the so-called ladies' activities, because they assume all participants of the meeting are male geographers, so their spouses to do something different. So instead of having academic activity for the female, the spouses, they actually have ladies' activities for fashion show, for shopping, and all that. So you may not believe that was just 60 years ago. Women were not even considered serious academics. So back in the 70s and 80s, Janice Monk, Susan Hansen, among others, was the first group of women geographers not only made their own career, often as the only women graduate student, the first female faculty member in their respective department, but they are truly trailblazers, making women's issue forefront in geography, in academic activities as well in academic conferences. So I'll try to be brief. Of course, there are so many other people I can mention, but these are women geographers that truly inspired me.
I think you also have a kind of like, so I always have this kind of a little theory about like the people who inspire you, and once they have inspired you, take on some part of them in your life, so that even they go, even they rest in peace, you still have that part, something you have learned from them, and you can tell them they still live in the stories. And they still live in you.
Actually, of course, I want to mention, I put the last, who is also another women geographer who was actually my own advisor, Jennifer Wolch. She just recently retired from UC Berkeley, and she was very inspirational in terms of she took me in under her wing when I was a little bit confused about whom I should work the best. And she has always had my own best interest in mind. And academically, she trained me to thinking more broadly in the global background and all that. Even though when her research and my research doesn't really overlap that much. But I remember back then when we still were using hard copies, she used black ink to change my to comments or directly added to my draft. Sometimes her blue ink or more than my black print out. So in terms of how much she devoted to my career, I have a lot of story to talk about her, but to be very quick, she's actually, to this day, I already graduated 26 years. to this day, she's still one of my closest friend. And if I face anything in academia or even personally, I still consult with her. So you can sense, without saying much more, you can sense kind of trust, the relationship and the friendship we build up. And to this day, some of the method I'm using for my own PhD student, research or teaching assistant, I still inherited from her.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like this, have this positivity, and what you have learned, the inspiration continues. And from what you're talking about, although I would say for people who don't know them, they may seem as a big name. But once you know the stories, you know that they are real human beings. They are not this kind of like some professor will be full of themselves. They actually open up. They show their vulnerabilities. They show their care when they actually when they communicate with each other. And that's why I think that's why they become inspirational. And this could be passed on. This could pass on. Even I didn't know them. I knew that some other experience this kind of like inspirational experience with them are like, wow, that's amazing. Because it's not just their research, not just their research, but also their personality and their humanity in this helps you to realize that's how a community could actually be built. That's how women support each other to go through this difficult journey. I would not say it's, but they have definitely have made it much easier than before. I think it's kind of like they can see, they may want through even more difficult than what we experienced, but they wanted to make it easier. They wanted to support future or current kind of women scholars to shine, to thrive. That's a really good thing to know. And I'm also I can imagine that for your students, you must have been the same inspiration to them. It's just I haven't got the chance to know them yet. But before in our kind of like communication, I can tell when you communicate with your student, especially when you get influence from all these inspirational women geographers, and I would say to a certain extent, they're also educators. They have a deep sense of understanding what education is, and they pass it on. It's a really good thing to know. And I'm also quite curious, like, what would you do in the future that you think could also continue this? Will you also consider to combine women and geography in your research? Or are you already doing something? If you feel happy to share a little bit.
As we shared in our email communication, I am currently part of a project called the Status of Women in Geography. It was one committee within geography, or within AAG, was a sub-organization, a group of women geographers initiated this project, so they invited me to participate. So the project want to update a famous or seminal publication in 1990 by Uber Zelinsky about similar subject matter. So the group decided to do three major parts of the project activity. One is analyze historical and institutional data in terms of how many women made it to the full geography rank or in different ranks, as well as how many women geographers are editors or associate editors in geographic journal, not just in US, but in some major international journal as well. And a survey among AAG members. The first phase was mainly the US AAG members. Both two separate survey on faculty and graduate student. So that's the second major project. The third major project activity is to interview all surviving AAG woman president. So you may not believe, again, from 1904 to 2022, AAG has 119 years history. There was only a total of 18 women president. And the first ever women AAG president was more than 100 years, a famous U.S. female geographer, Ellen Churchill Semple. Her term was 1921 to 1922. And the second woman president was not elected until 1984 to 1985, more than 60 decades ago. Wow. And there were 3 more in 1990s. Entering 21st century, the situation has changed dramatically. Majority, 13 out of 23 presidents were women. And we just have 3 consecutive women presidents. So we felt we want to learn these inspirational women geographers who, as you said, who made it on their own, in their own career, but were elected by membership to lead AAG as a professional organization, because AAG it's registered as a U.S. professional organization, but do have a lot of foreign international members, including UK, China, and among other countries. So we want to learn their experience and expertise, how they made it through especially the early generation. They overcome so much more obstacles, challenges than the current generation, right? Yeah. And we also want to learn what difference they made in AAG as a woman president versus those majority, almost 100 men president. And also we want to learn their assessment of geography and the status of women in geography, what initiative they took when they were president, and what their prospect in terms of the future for women in geography and geography in general. So that's, I would say, that's the first major project I involved that forefront women geographer, because my previous work on immigrants and analyze and interview a number of women, but that most time those were not my primary focus. But this project, I did volunteer to lead the interview part, because among the 17 surviving women president, I know most of them. I work closely with half of them. So I did volunteer to be part of that project activity and then led the effort. So we had a total of 9 project members joined the interview process, cleaned the transcript. Now we are in the process of writing an article, an academic article, but we also want to do a website to document, to archive these historical material, sort of similar like what you are doing. Yes. But we are not doing multimedia per se, but we also want to archive these historical material, especially, like I said, some of these 17 were already retired, and some suffering different health condition and all that. So we felt important. This is a collective memory for the organization. Yeah, and for the whole field of geography.
Definitely,
we were talking about that particular project, so I just want to add 2 more facts for your audience and the general public. Among the 17 surviving women AAG president, 4 of them are women of color. So that's really a great progress, but still not enough. Right. And also I mentioned 9 female AAG members were part of the interview team. I would also like to share the fact 2/3 of us are immigrant women geography ourselves. So our native language was not English, and we shared our bilingual and our own positionality, kind of intersectional positionality in our develop of the interview guide, as well as the interview process themselves. So I'm really happy about what we've been done, and I'm really appreciative of all the 17 women AAG president to share their experience, to open up and share their experience and their assessment as well as their expertise. So that's truly the project, and what we learned from that project were really inspirational as well.
I really look forward to see the article, and also, of course, in the future, the website. I'm sure a lot of teachers would also appreciate that, because then you actually got real story to tell. You don't need young kids to imagine become a geographer. They're actually living examples, and they have achieved quite a lot. They have changed what geography was like to today, which is I'm really looking forward to this. And I'm so glad that we're doing this project now. And like you said, it's just the beginning. And I think the credit goes to the 9 kind of interviewers. Like, if you didn't go for this, like, because I think it's quite important to do this and have the courage to do this. And also, like you said, recognizing the kind of like intersectionality in yourself to bring this positionality into this. It is what I think we have advanced with the feminist studies and with geography studies to understand. There's no way that we're going to pretend this is objective, this is rational, this is something that is not a way we actually recognize what is happening now. And it's really great you're already doing this. And I also want to ask you to give a few words to our possible audience. I would consider they could be young geographers. They would be or at least interested in knowing more about women's story, how women can achieve professionally.
Thank you for the question. And again, I really appreciate your doing this project. I would actually use my own experience to say a little bit what I would like to share with younger generation kids, as well as people aspirational to become a geographer or any other professions. I was actually among the Chinese generation who are the so-called shutdown youth. So in countryside, for 3 years I was doing farmers' work. My inspiration become a geographer was my mom used to work at Beijing Normal University, and I used to have a few neighbors from that department. So I sort of know geography department as, like you said, as from a humanistic perspective or human experience instead of understanding. Then when I was in that rural village in Yanqing, now called district, used to be called county, right? So it's in a mountain area, very lack of water. So once one of the geography professor led a group of college students you probably know, back then, the Chinese university student known as workers, peasants, and the soldier students back then, right? Yeah. So one geography professor led a group of those students went to my village. They were doing survey for groundwater resources. After they left, we actually spent a lot of time digging another well in terms of hoping to improve the water conditions in the village. So that kind of planted a seed in my mind. Geography can directly contribute to the betterment of people's life. So that's what I started. Then led to my bachelor thesis about Indian Green Revolution. My master thesis was about the U.S. semi-arid region, the so-called Great Plain. So I can say for both my bachelor and master degree, my thesis was about agricultural geography, right? So I felt it's important to follow our heart, what we hope to do, and why we decided to do that. Then I switched to population migration, also in part of my own experience, being first an immigrant student, then an immigrant geographer, immigrant professor, navigating through bicultural situations. So I think that shows to me, and I told my own PhD student as well, only if you choose a field and a research subject or whatever subject you want to study, then you want to devote your time and effort to it.
Yeah.
In terms of geography, many people, especially inside China and outside China, some people, actually a lot of people, think geography just memorizing capital, mountain, river, and all that. So I want to show there are a lot of stuff geographers can do beyond just GIS. GIS is such important, or now called geoscientists, right?
Yeah.
And all geographic information scientists. They are so important. Actually support a lot of employment now for geographer graduate, right? But also try to select a subject matter that you feel passionate about. I think that's so important. But I also want to realize the reality. Not everyone can do what they really want to do. That's a privilege. I do have to say, like the very fact I was able to do what I like to do. Now I'm doing research on highly skilled migration, including international students, as well as the so-called stayers like myself after studying and stayed in my study country, or those returnees. These are some of the privileged situations. Not everyone, especially some younger generation, they face the pressure of finding a job and make a living, eventually start a family and all that, right? The middle-aged generation now is a sandwich generation as well, have a lot of pressure in their life and as well as career. But I would still stress, try to find a niche, even if your work itself is assigned to you, not what you chose, but still find a niche to combine your own passion with what you need to do. Then you wouldn't feel the job is a drain. But the job can lead to career, can lead to improve your own situation. I mean, not just financial situation, but your career, but also making, to use the U.S. National Science Foundation's buzzword, broader impact to society, to people around us, and also especially to possibly help or at least contribute, however tiny, to the world, especially those who are underprivileged, who do not have a voice. So I think by doing that, we can feel content. So when I think early on you asked me about my future projects, I'm in a crossroad in a sense about doing what I'm going to do next. Because I'm just done one NSF project on highly skilled migrants. So I'm also trying to think about what I'm going to do. But I think this subject matter of women and the geography is an important one. And I found that inspirational and rewarding in terms of hearing from those 17 AAG women AAG president. So I do have hope in younger generation because the world would rely on them, right? How if the entire humankind, are we going to progress or are we going to regress? The whole world, as well as each nation state we are, irrespective of which nation state we are, whether or not we progress and regress, a lot decided on our decision, especially the younger generations decision and action, right? So I do hope the younger generation choose their own path, find their own niche, and hopefully doing what they really like to do, or at least doing things that are meaningful to do, so that collectively we can have these generational, not inheritance, but continuity in a sense. Like you pointed out early on, from my advisor instilled in me, and what I am passing on to my own PhD student as well as other students.
Yeah.
So I'm sure some of my the earlier PhD student of mine are already associate professors themselves. So they would in turn to impact their students. So these kind of role model, as well as I would emphasize caring of each other as human beings, because advisor-advisee relationships beyond just academia, right? Yeah. And also for you and me as a geographer teacher, in terms of educating the general audience, general public, in terms of what geography can do and who are these geographers really matters. So again, I really want to thank you for your project, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you.
I really appreciate to have this chance to talk to you. Like when Sarah recommended you to me, like I really hope I can get to talk, and it's happening now, which is really kind of like for me, it's like, oh, I wish I can, and now I do. And this is also something when I have started this initiative, I noticed that women geographers are so generous in sharing their knowledge, sharing their expertise, and introducing me to more people, because I didn't kind of like start with this. I had slightly moved my focus of my PhD study more to curriculum making and teacher agency, which is not that focused with this. So when I kind of like welcomed by the female geographers and the women geographers, and very interestingly also some male geographers really think this is very important and nominated like Sarah and this. I think it is changing. The community, the geographers are noticing that we need to embrace all these changes. And I'm glad that women geographers are taking a lead on this.
I will just quickly add two more things, kind of react to what you said. I definitely agree with you. A lot of women and women geographers are really willingly to share their time and their expertise and support each other. When you told me Sarah recommended me, I was like, oh gosh, she's really, because I was not the one interviewed her, but of course we had interchange about that particular project. So I was very appreciative about that. And also you mentioned the importance of allies and support network by male or by men. Right? Because geography is, at least in the US, I don't know about the UK situation or less about Chinese situation anymore, but in the US, it's still male, in general, still some kind of male dominated, although we have more female students and early career and the later career faculty, as well as in leadership position like department chair or university college level, as well as the 17 AAG president. But male still the majority in most cases. So we need to find male allies and support network. I would say, given the nature of your project, I only talk about women geographer inspirational, but in my own career, I also have many male mentors and supporters and all that. So I want to acknowledge them as well, as you said.
Yes. So I would say, like, the reason I have this mapping Inspirational Women is started in the time like before International Women's Day. I was thinking like, since we are geographers, what about do we actually have a map of geographers and what we can see with a women geographer? That's how initially I have this idea emerged, and I talked to women geographers and the male geographers, and which the male geographers actually really think of quite a few people that I can talk to. So it's kind of like, I think this is kind of a community, and a lot of male geographers, they notice that it is the time we don't, like in our generation, we don't want to hide the women geographers. We want them, bring them to the stage, make sure they also get time to talk about this. This is very different, I think, to some of the women geographers experienced a century ago. So I think we have all educated ourselves to come to the stage, to know that we want everyone to get a chance. And for me, that is, to a certain extent, that is what feminism is for. Like beyond geography, I really like Bell Hooks who write about feminism is for everybody. And this is, so for me, it's really, I'm really glad that when I started doing this, like all these male geographers, they're also supportive in this. Of course, I feel like women geographers are more knowledgeable, more supportive, but it's also good to see that everyone's supportive when I have this idea. Yeah.
It's great to hear.
Yes. I think this is it. And if any of our audience listening to this and you have something to say, please get in touch. We're happy to know your comments or your thoughts on this. And hopefully we will take this further. We'll continue this journey.